whoa, this is kind of uncomfortable, but I also kind of like it, and it's like turning me on and activating me, and like I don't know what to do with this energy, right? That's like the poles are like almost
They're
switching in the
moving.
moment
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
way that
And you're someone who loves to receive, and you're with a partner who hates to give,
that's gonna suck.
it's gonna suck.
So innately, there is a desire within me as a feminine to want to surrender just to the masculine. Could you imagine getting into a fight because we both just want to kill? And I'm just like, I don't care about quality time. I want you to touch me. I know your style now.
You know my style.
I know your style is
Thank you.
So welcome.
7 episodes in, and we finally got it down.
Finally nailed it.
Nailed it.
Yes.
That's good.
That was really good.
That's good. Okay. Episode 7.
Episode 7.
Yeah.
This one's exciting.
Yeah.
This one's exciting. I feel like I didn't say that very right.
Yeah, can I get congruency with the words you
I'm
say?
so excited for this episode. And the reason why is because at the core of this is energetics.
Yes.
And for me, play.
Ooh, yes, I agree with that. Yeah. So we're talking about polarity.
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 Polarity?
Righties.
No left poles here.
No, just righty poles.
Just righty poles. Excuse you. Yeah, and I thought I would like to share what polarity means to me.
Please.
So I have a very tantric philosophical approach to it.
Tell me about it.
And I will, thank you. The tantric non-dual Shiva Tantra that I follow is of the philosophy that we are living in a non-dual reality, and that reality appears dualistically. And by this I mean opposing truths or opposites existing in parallel. And so we have the polarities of on and off, light and dark, male and female, masculine and feminine. And these two opposing truths exist at the ends of a spectrum, and that there is a sliding scale of the spectrum that exists between these two poles. Like a dimmer switch, you can have on and off, and there's an infinite distance between the two. So yes, this is polarity. And in regards to the conversation we're having today, the distinction between male and female, or masculinity and femininity, or masculine and feminine. The distinction for me being male and female is the physical representation of the polarity of the sexes. And masculinity and femininity are energetics. They're qualities not relating to sex. They are energetic qualities. So a male can and does have polarities of both masculine and feminine, and can reside in each and anywhere in between. And the same is true for a female-bodied person.
This raises a question for me.
Okay.
Maybe this is like a bit elementary. I don't know. This is
Elementary, my dear.
Where if it is non-dual, then wouldn't the poles not even exist? Wouldn't it all just be energy and it's just magnetic in one way or another?
In the cosmic soup of reality, yes.
Cosmic soup.
But when consciousness, which is non-dual, chooses to take form in the world, in the universe, it represents itself
fair.
in a way that is perceived dualistically.
So it's all about perception.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah. And that's how we operate in the world. It's how we engage with the world.
Totally.
How we perceive it.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. And so the the non-duality exists within us, and we get to express that through our dualistic nature. And so the interesting thing for me, I find, is with regards to the polarities, both truths exist simultaneously, but only can be expressed in one polarity at any one time. So from a physics point of view, look at light. It behaves as a wave and as a particle, and it exhibits the dualistic nature of reality, and it depends how you observe it.
Right. Yeah, I've seen those tests. Yeah.
Right. And so when it comes to the physical embodiment, we embody a polarity, but we don't have the ability to change that. It's just, it is how our bodies represent themselves as they take shape in the world.
Do you feel like polarities and the interplay of polarities ever become instinctual?
Can you elaborate?
I think of an example where we've been talking about vulnerability in relationships, where let's say that it is the man, he's very vulnerable, and so the woman switches into her masculine because her safety is triggered. Like, does that actually just happen on instinct? That's like, whoa, I'm noticing that I'm gonna have to carry this here, and so there's a part of my nervous system maybe that then activates that pull.
Yeah.
Like, is it instinctual, nervous system based? Like, how does that actually shift?
Well, I would say that all of the capabilities to behave in any particular way are just, they're neither inherently masculine or feminine. It's just, as human beings, we like to label things.
So that's how we quantify the energy.
It's how we qualify it. It has a masculine quality, or it has a feminine quality. The universe doesn't care. Like, essentially, in my opinion, there's no right or wrong in universally speaking. It's the way I believe that it's occurred is that over the course of history, certain qualities have been demonstrated more predominantly in male or female bodies. And if we just think of what Shiva Shakti energetics, they're represented as the masculine and feminine. They're just representations. Yeah. And they all just speak into the polaric nature of qualities. Yeah. So any quality can exist in the opposites, and you want to call it masculine and feminine or Shiva or Shakti. It's just the label, and you could invert it if you want.
Right, because I think of Kali, for instance, right, and like when she's in destruction mode, that could be seen, like, if she's embodying her inner warrior, that could be seen as masculine energy. She's so powerful, right? She's in like the protector of her energy space, but she's not a masculine deity, right? She's a feminine deity, and that gets to be, even that power that she's experiencing in her warrior, in her destruction, doesn't make her any less feminine. It's just an expression of that energy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that came to mind there was thinking of like a very masculine quality is penetration and penetrating the world with your will, and females do that all the time. It doesn't make them any less feminine, and they literally penetrate the world with a human being during birth, but it's still feminine in their essence. I feel it's human beings like to classify things because it allows us to point our focus of attention towards something. And then I feel like there's nothing more basic or fundamental than a polarity. And the easiest way to label that is masculine and feminine.
Yeah, or yin yang. Right, that's
exactly.
nice when people don't want to bring in the gender things, and there's a whole riot around that discussion. It's like, okay, great, yin yang. One's more directive, one's more receptive, and they just dance around each other, right? That's what polarities really are. It's like these two, opposing is not really the word I want to use, but, you know, opposing energies, opposing energies that can create a magnetic pull. And in dynamics, we say that is attraction or chemistry. Right? Of like, oh, I am seeing, feeling, noticing a resonance of something that you carry that excites me, excites my body, completes that cycle. I don't know what to call it. So there's a friction there that's supportive. Chemistry that's supportive, attraction that's supportive.
Well, yeah, you can't have one polarity without the other. Otherwise, it's not a polarity.
Yeah.
It's only in the recognition that you're female that I can appreciate that I'm male. Like, without the opposite, I have no meaning, or like I have no intrinsic value. In the sense of the label. Like, if the feminine didn't exist, I wouldn't be masculine. And it's only through the acknowledgement and appreciation of my counterpart that I do get a full understanding of myself. So yeah, they're inherently linked and super important for each other in that dance.
Like dancing in the polarities.
Yes. And that's something that I'd love for us to talk about, because I feel like that's part of being in relationship.
Yeah.
Sacred pause.
Okay.
Unpause.
You get back in there. So polarities in relationships is what you're talking about.
In that, I see relationship being a dance of polarity.
Yeah.
That, you know, as a male-bodied person, I have the masculine feminine dance playing within me, as do you.
Yeah.
And in this dynamic, at least, I'm being invited to show up fully in my masculine so that you may show up fully in your feminine.
Yeah.
Right. And there are opportunities and moments where I need to, want to reside in a more feminine energetic.
What are some examples of that for you?
Being in receivership. Whether that be whether that being vulnerable, whether that being in receptivity of sexual energetic.
Yeah, devotion.
Right.
When we do devotion, you receive.
I'm in a place of receivership. If I couldn't fully reside in receivership, I wouldn't be able to fully enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that's been present for you in you getting the opportunity to fully surrender. You've been able to let go of those parts of you that weren't allowing you to do that, and you've experienced deeper pleasure, enjoyment as a result.
Yeah. And it even makes me think too of like in the act of devotion, right? When I'm devoting to you, yes, I'm devoting and you're also being worshipped, right? So even though you're in receptivity, that doesn't make you any less masculine in that moment, right? You're just in your receptivity. And if we're working it right, then fully in receptivity, right? It's a space where you can also surrender the mind to the body, to the physical sensations of the body, the spiritual connection.
Yeah.
And emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the relationship dynamic is this, I would see it as the conscious interplay of polarities. It's like, if I need to reside in my feminine energetic of vulnerability, of not being an infraction point of I've got this thing going on, I really need to share it, and I need to be held, then it invites you to go, okay, well, I can reside in my masculine and hold that for you. In a feminine way.
Yeah, of course. Because I think of like, I can hold space, but even then that doesn't necessarily make me ever feel like I'm in my masculine. It's just like, oh, I'm holding the emotional energy. And in some ways, it's like, you're still creating the container. I'm just holding what's in the container in general, like through and through, right? I don't really see you showing up in your vulnerability as the situation any less contained in that regard. So it's still creating the structure, but even when I am holding space, I don't all of a sudden go, oh, I'm in my masculine. I'm like, no, I'm in my nurturing feminine energy that is holding your feminine energy. I think when I show up and it's like, hey, let's say it was actually like a solution to a problem, and then I'm in my mental intellect and I'm solving something, that feels far more masculine to me than just holding emotional space.
Yes. Yeah, I can understand that because it's more typically masculine quality. And I would say that there's also subtleties in the masculine and feminine. This is where it gets so, like, how pedantic do you want to get about it?
Yeah. I almost feel like reverting away from masculine and feminine energetics is good. Not just because of like the uproar of other communities and just how it's identified and how it's labeled or mislabeled in some cases, but even like the yin yang energy is like, you really can't contest that. It's like, okay, there's one pole that is directive, that is intellectual.
Right. Yes.
There's another pole that is deeply intuitive and embodied. And of course, over time and over history, it has been a label that has been issued to certain genders based upon principles of how they act and also anatomy, which maybe to some degree is unfair. But still, like, taking those labels aside and just speaking to the energetics, it feels like it's almost easier to just talk yin yang. I was like, oh, okay, I'm in this yang energy, right? I'm in this penetrative energy, and it doesn't have to feel so confined to an if or and or.
I feel like it's less emotionally charged, should we say?
Yes.
Yes.
And what, philosophical? Is yin yang really philosophical?
Yeah, it's not Indian, but like Taoist.
Yeah. Okay.
But this is what I mean. Like the way I perceive it, my understanding of it, yin yang is the equivalent of Shiva Shakti.
Yeah.
It's a it's a phonetic label and representation of an inherent quality that exists within the dualistic nature of reality. The fact that these...
Like you just pulled that out of a spiritual textbook. Yeah. Full channel,
yeah. These polarities exist.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense to ignore the fact that they exist, because it's what makes reality what it is. If we wanted to ignore that, then we'd be taking away from the beauty of this lived experience, or this perceived experience.
We see it naturally in relationships in general. It doesn't matter heteronormative, asexual, bisexual, LGBTQ plus, like, there are two poles that reside in the couple, whether whoever has whatever essence is, at the end of the day, actually, to me personally, irrelevant. It's just like, how are you playing with the energies that are alive, and how does it support your connection?
Like, who cares? Label yourself what you want.
Yeah.
Because the label's there. Like, the the existence of the polarity is there regardless
One way or
of
another.
right, exactly. What's important is how what I feel like is important is how you or how we play with it and how we relate to it. And the name is merely it's literally a placeholder. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a representation.
Yeah.
What's important is how it is related to, and this is the fun I feel of playing in polarity in relationship. Like if I think of sexual exchange, you can be very masculine about it, very penetrate, right?
Yeah.
But it's boring. It's if you can bring the feminine quality, the yin quality, whatever you want to call it, of playfulness into that masculine, penetrative, energetic, that it becomes interesting. It's like, oh, you're getting to play in switching of the polarities.
Yeah.
And this is where you get into the kink realm as well. It's like there's an inherent understanding that polarity exists, and that play with polarity is inherent to being and hella fun.
It's like I see the masculine or yang energy is like the black and white energy, and the yin / feminine is like the gray area, right? It's like, okay. The gray area is what brings uncertainty almost to like the standard black and white way of operating, because it's like, oh, well, that works if certain circumstances are met, but plug in a couple other factors into there and all of a sudden it's not so black and white,
Right.
And I love that women bring that, and it's their receptivity,
Yes.
in my opinion, or whoever carries the feminine essence, the yin essence in there, is what actually creates that conversation. Because it shifts, and it really does force presence, in my opinion. It's like, hey, meeting me where I'm at, right? Even in my polarity, as I exist in this moment, what I am feeling, thinking, offering, and then being met in that by the opposing energy, and transmuting that.
Yeah, and dancing with it. Yeah, like if I'm thinking Shiva Shakti as well, like the masculine Shiva is the order, the container, and within that is the chaos or the playfulness of Shakti.
Yeah.
And it's the dance of the two that makes it what it is, and why both are necessary.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to, I feel like, consciously honor that in relationship to a degree. It's, like when we play sexually, it is a play of polarity.
Yeah, we bounce around.
Yeah.
Mostly because I'm also in the space like, I want to play too. It's like this whole switch energy, right? And it's because we both love to give and receive, and that reciprocity feels very good for both of us. It's like, naturally, you're a giver.
Yes.
Naturally, I'm a giver. That's what makes our relationship, also both Venus and Taurus, are very sensual. And so giving is receiving, and receiving is also giving in our particular dance of polarity. And I enjoy that.
Yeah, that's why I'm very happy to give for periods of time, because I know that it's bringing pleasure, and I also receive pleasure from it.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that dynamic between us.
Yeah.
And I would say that play of polarity exists within everyone to some degree. Now, given the nature of the infinite possibilities of representation of the divine in reality, there is a scale upon which people exist. So some people are going to be, no, I want to be really in the giving, like that's where I want to be. And some people are going to be, no, I really want to be in the receiving, and that's where they want to be. And the amount of switch that goes on is going to be present, but to varying degrees. And I guess that's part of finding a partner that resonates with you.
And your relating style.
Right. And why conscious intimacy and relating is so important. Because if you're in a relationship and you're someone who loves to receive and you're with a partner who hates to give,
that's gonna suck.
it's gonna suck.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just being honest about where people are at on that spectrum. It's like, am I predominantly a giver? Am I predominantly a receiver? Am I a taker? I'm forgetting what the other one is right now. My mind's going to submissive, but it's
wait, what did we say? Give,
take, receive, allow.
Ask. Allow. Yeah.
Yeah, the allowance. And finding where within that spectrum people are. Because I've been in other dynamics. It is challenging. Either because I feel like I'm not given a space to give in the way that I want to, or that when I do offer what I have to give, it's not received. That's so challenging. Or the other way around, where when I want to receive, but yeah, a person's just not a giver, and then let's say they're like a taker or something, and it's like, I have to shift I had to shift what my framework around receiving. I was like, oh, that's kind of receiving, but it never really felt fulfilling in that regard. And so to tune into that energy around like, okay, what polarity are we playing with here, in terms of even what we desire, what turns us on, what activates us, and playing in those energetics can be so fun.
Yeah.
It's like, you tie me up, I want to tie you up. I had to tie you up one day, you know. But just having that, like, there's an equal reciprocity there that works for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Please tie me up.
Yes, I want to. I just want to learn shibari and tie you up. And there's a part of me that just, obviously, like, Mistress Kitty is the thing. And when I do cabaret, now that I know her name is Mistress Kitty, she loves to come out. I was just talking about this on Breakfast at Tiffany's, where I am the MC of my own cabaret shows, and she comes online, and I just let her. And I love it because she's so seductive, and she loves to just like toy and play with people. And at the end of the day, even when I facilitate my workshops, I'm guiding it. And I'm guiding it obviously to help people get into their bodies and to be that permission slip. And Miss Kitty loves to come and is like, yeah, do what I say. And like, I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's almost like, there's power.
It's a dom.
There, right? Yeah.
You're in dom energy.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just like, okay. Like, do I want to be in dom energy all the time? Fuck no. Fuck no. No. I like to receive too much.
You want to play in that?
Yeah, but I like to play in it. It's fun to be in that role and give that part of my personality, which is very, very clearly there, a space to shine. And how she's always come through has been when I've performed. When I've done cabaret, when I've performed at other events. She loves it. She's like, okay. Same with my dark feminine. When I would perform a lot, my dark feminine always wanted to come online because there was so much of my life that she wasn't able to be seen. That performance became her healthy outlet.
Right.
And now I've expanded beyond that. But I'll tell you, when I am performing, she's the first one that comes up. It's like, let's do something dark. Because it's edgy for people, right? If I'm in my soft feminine all the time, it's like, there's so much beauty or whatever. But to witness a woman in like an embodied dark feminine can be really challenging and triggering. And there's a part of me that just loves that. It's like, I love that polarity too. Like, you want me to be beautiful and you want me to be soft and feminine, but that's not always the case. And giving that aspect of my personality a place to shine.
Sure.
Also, it creates polarity because it shifts the way people feel in their body. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
The thing in cabaret too is like, when people are on their edge, right, it's the space of like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable, but I also kind of like it, and it's like turning me on and activating me, and like I don't know what to do with this energy, right? That's like the poles are like almost switching in the moment in a way that they might not quite feel comfortable with, and I love those moments.
Right.
I love those moments
because you're inviting them to experience the interplay of polarity in a way that they're not used to.
Totally.
Yeah. And that's fun. And the attractive thing for me about witnessing that is that I know it's being done in a controlled way. Like, I know you're in control of that dark feminine. Or I know you're in control of that part of your polarity. Like, if it's out of control, I'm staying away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you're getting the opportunity to explore the polarities in that way, and in a healthy space, and in different spaces, because I think it's in not getting to honor the polarity that naturally resides within that dis-ease occurs.
Yeah, of course. You just feel out of alignment.
Right.
I know myself personally, it's like something's off. I mean, I used to be in my hypermasculine a lot, and obviously, like, I'm a CEO, solopreneur, entrepreneur, I own my own business, and so there is a need for me to be in both. I cannot just fully be in my feminine. Even if it's just my masculine showing up that records the content, that organizes the post. And for the longest time, when I would tell people what my skill sets were, I was like, oh, I'm so productive. I love ticking boxes. I love getting things done. And then sometimes like, wow, that's very yang energy. It's very masculine. It's like tick success, tick success, tick success. And I really resonated with that for a long time. And then finding this new part of myself that was, okay, now that I feel safe enough in myself, in my body, in my business, to step out of that role and step into something that was more creative and was more flowy. I found so much creative energy in there and a lot of passion in there that I wasn't finding when I was in my hypermasculine. And every time I would drop into hypermasculine, I would get into that mechanical gotta do mentality, which is what makes men so successful. And I would constantly go through periods of burnout. And that's how I knew, I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm not actually supporting my natural essence, but also just my body.
Yeah.
I became so disconnected from my femininity, which is my intuitive body, saying, hey, rest would be a good thing here. Eat your greens, drink some juice, drink some water.
Yeah. And I feel like the same can happen in relationship. Because if you're being invited or required by a partner to reside in polarity that isn't quite where you want to be, then you get the emotional equivalent of burnout. And your body or your mind going, something is out of alignment here.
Yeah.
And we need to change whatever is like creating this.
Like, if you just wanted to be a sub all the time and you wanted to be the dom all the time, I couldn't do it. At some point, I would just be like, this is not my natural essence to be in that role full time.
And the thing is, from my experience at least, and from readings as well, the honeymoon phase of a relationship is people choosing to reside in a pole that they don't naturally reside in. And after there's a level of comfort achieved in the relationship, they drop into the pole that they really want to be in. It's like, who is this person? You're so different to the person that I met. Or like, you've changed. And it's like, no, I've just become who I actually want to be comfortably. So that's the danger of, the challenge of polarity as well, playing in polarity. And
even as you're saying that, it just makes me wonder, like, maybe that honeymoon phase for those particular couples actually is just this like, well, the chemistry's so good, and so I start to people please without even recognizing that that's what's happening. So I shift because this energy's so nice and this chemistry feels so hot and erotic, and I want it, and not realizing where there's actually like misalignment. And
you find out when you burn out, like emotionally in relationship.
And when challenge shows up, it's like, okay, when there's challenge, if I'm in integrity and in alignment with my values, I'm going to show up authentically. And if I'm not, then those challenges will continue to persist, obviously.
Yeah. And so I feel like it's really useful to bring a conscious element to polarity in relationship. Because it was interesting that you say that you've been in a masculine pole.
Yeah.
Has that been in, not just in your work life, but in relationship as well? Well, actually, I want to bring it back to a point that you made, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where you said that in a previous relationship, your partner was more in take than in give. I'd love to elaborate on that. I feel like that's a really interesting distinction to make, and why that was challenging, because I feel like that plays into residing in a pole that isn't quite in alignment.
Yeah. My experience of me being in my masculine energy really was rooted in trauma. It was like the need to protect myself and not having that energy present. And so my masculine would take over, or inner feminine, but it was just like, it was so stoic, and so that armor really caused me to stay in my masculine. My feminine did not feel safe. My inner child, my inner little girl did not feel safe. And so that energy was really the thing that was holding me, but it was also really keeping me at a distance. And so I can see how in previous relationships in general, it would have been impossible to know what my polarity was and what was actually authentic for me, because in my trauma I had been numbing, I had been fawning, which is essentially like shifting and befriending your abuser. And so I was constantly shape shifting in order to ensure my own safety. And so that obviously became very confusing for my whole system, my whole nervous system. It was like, who am I? I remember thinking that, like, oh my God, this seems all chaotic and none of this feels good, and what's actually true for me. And so getting into the process of like trauma healing and somatics really opened that up for me. And then created space through somatic experiencing for my feminine to start to emerge and for the emotion and the grief to start to emerge. Fast forward to that relationship, when I would think about what's my natural essence, it's I love giving and I love receiving. I'm very equal both. Like, I love to receive. I love to receive touch. It's one of my love languages. I love to give touch. So I reside in those two poles. There's a desire, of course, as a feminine, to surrender, which is what the allow is, as opposed to the take, right? The take is like, I would like this thing. May I have this? The allower says yes.
Right.
I surrender.
Yeah.
And so innately, there is a desire within me as a feminine to want to surrender just to the masculine.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily need to be taken, no. But seeing how that relationship was challenging was, because I am such a giver of love, to be in a space where I would try to give my love often and it just couldn't be received, brought up so much frustration in me and just challenge in my relationship, because there was a disconnect, because we weren't even on the same poles. And my desire to be in the opposite of his pole was like, well, of course I want to surrender. I want to experience that. And just recognizing that for me in the particular moment, I also didn't quite feel safe enough to even really truly drop into surrender. And so, but us being on the same side of even the wheel, like the wheel of consent, right? Like taker and giver, like on the same sides. And so it's like, there's complementary aspects of that, but in terms of actually creating chemistry and polarity, especially in the bedroom, it was challenging because his needs weren't met fully and neither were my needs met fully. Right. And there was a way that's like, okay, well, we can try to make this work. And I think inevitably there's a piece probably in both of us that's like, how long? Because our desires were really craving other things.
Yeah, exactly. And it's through the understanding of those poles, that polarity, that you kind of get to that understanding. It might have to be the long way round and
totally.
the painful way round, but eventually it presents itself because the desire for alignment is so powerful.
Yeah, you really can't ignore it. I would feel very visceral signs that were just like, there's a disconnect here, and it's making it challenging to go to the depth that I want to go, to have the sexual intimacy that I wanted to have, and vice versa. And I think, like, if you and I were both operating out of our masculines, like, we would butt heads. Right. There's too much charge of the same energy there.
Yeah. And I like, the thing that I enjoy in this relationship is that we play with that polarity. Like, if you want to give, I will happily sit and receive. and vice versa. If I struggled to sit in that polarity because you were wanting to give and I were wanting to give, we were butting heads, I mean, it wouldn't work.
Could you imagine getting into a fight because we both just want to give? No, I'm giving to you now. Like, so there, take it. It's just like, okay, so nobody's getting anything. Okay, great. You know?
But this is the thing. If you're in a relationship dynamic with a man who struggles to sit in receptivity, then if you like to give and they're not willing to sit and receive, then that's going to show itself. It's going to present itself.
Oh, hard. Oh, it's so hard.
That sounds like it's from experience.
It becomes so apparent.
Yeah.
It just becomes so clear. And even then it's like, okay, well, what's happening here? And this kind of goes back to like just the education piece. That's like, we don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
And so if you're not well versed in this, it would be challenging. You might not know why the relationship isn't working, or why the passion or fire has died down, and you wouldn't even know how to bring it back. And with this, even like the wheel of consent as an example, it's like, wow, that gives so much power to the person to claim their personal way of energetics and poles, and then find the person that matches the opposing energy, because that's what's going to be successful. And there's so many relationships out there where, they are the companions, you know, they're side by side. It's like, oh, this is really nice. But then there's like there's a plateau, right? Because there's a cap on what they're able to experience in terms of depth, because at some point, at some crux, there's like the inauthenticity shows up and reveals itself. You know, I remember like low-key almost like forcing my partner to receive me, and it just like, it blew up in my face. And I remember feeling so challenged because I was like, oh, I just want to like offer this to you, and I feel like I just can't understand why it's so hard to receive. There's just like so not that person's energy. Right. And it was in that moment that I was like, oh my God, I just like literally forced you to like receive me. He did it out of like just kindness for me, but it was just like,
that's so interesting.
Ugh, it was brutal. It was like the pin drop that I was like, okay, wow, this will not work.
Right.
This won't, because I can't offer my greatest gift.
Right.
In the way that fulfills me.
Because they're not naturally wanting to receive it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's the same with when people talk about love languages, you know, where if mine's physical affection, and that's like the least of that's at the bottom of your list, that would be so challenging for me, because I probably wouldn't get PDA. Maybe I could touch you, maybe I couldn't. Maybe you could even be like, actually, I would like you to not touch me, and I could see how that would really impact me. And you're like, well, I'm giving you quality time, and I'm just like, I don't care about quality time. I want you to touch me. You know, there's a disparity there.
Thank God we love inappropriate public displays of affection.
Yeah. We touch inappropriately everywhere we go. Very true.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, world.
But yes, you're right. Knowing that allows you to play in the poles, and knowing that it's not an option means you're informed to go, well, okay, this polarity, this play of polarity is just not available to me in the way that I need it in this dynamic.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that those other elements are not available. Like, we can play in all of the realms. And we know that naturally we're givers and receivers.
Yes.
That's what works best for us. That's what fills our cup. We can exchange. We can move into take and allow.
Which we do, and we enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And we can flip them around. We can switch.
Yeah. And and the thing that's coming through for me there is knowing where we naturally reside, and knowing the other realms in which to play.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that we match, I guess, in where we reside, and in our desire to play. And I think that's the important takeaway for conscious relating. Is one, you need to know where you are, what you like, and what polarities you like to play in.
Yeah.
And two, you need to be willing to communicate that with the person that you're with.
Yep.
Early enough that you're able to make a conscious choice about it and not get upset, frustrated, or inhibited to the point where it becomes so emotionally charged that pain and suffering occurs.
Yeah, resentment starts to build. And this is why I'm so glad that we're having these conversations, because there's so much value I find in having this knowledge about ourselves from the beginning, so that when we show up in the dating world, in partnership, in lovership, etc., it's so much easier to be able to discern, is this a match or not?
Right.
As opposed to, wow, there's a lot of chemistry here. I'm just going to kind of roll with it, see how it goes. 2 years down the road, it's like, well, clearly you're invested and you're in a relationship that doesn't actually serve your natural essence and the space that you want to play in. And it leads to heartbreak or, like suffering. And everybody's got their karma, their dharma, their path. Everywhere leads them home to the heart is really my belief. And so maybe those like accidental turns take us back home to ourselves and help us define who we are and what our desires are.
Yeah, 100%. I'm of the belief that all suffering is pointing to misalignment and ignorance to the truth of reality. And the very tantric principle in teaching is that the path of the tantric yogic path is to find balance between masculine, feminine, Shiva, Shakti, the transcendental and the immanent.
Internal, external.
Right. It's to find that balance in divine and pleasure through the exploration of polarity.
And pleasure and pain, right? Because they're just sensation.
Yeah.
Just an intensity of sensation.
Yeah. The sitting in a space of contentment, in bliss, in freedom, is residing in a place of balance between all those polarities that are interplaying with one another.
Yeah.
And it's through the conscious awareness that we find that, through relation that we find that. And yeah, that's exciting.
What would you say you would love, like, the takeaway from this conversation to be for people?
One is that polarity is an intrinsic part of existence, which means that it's okay to have both polarities and play with both polarities. Just because you are male or female bodied doesn't mean that you aren't also masculine, femininely poled, and there's enjoyment to be had in playing in that. The second for me would be, with that understanding of the inherent nature of reality comes the invitation to reflect on what it is that is alive in you, or what it is that's alive in the dynamic that you're in, so that you can better understand and enjoy what's in front of you. That would be mine. And to enjoy the never-ending, the continuous interplay of polarities in the cosmic soup of existence that reside within you.
Yeah. Even in friendships, we have polarities, right? It's not even just in intimate partnerships. I talk about that with my best friend all the time, where I was like, she's light and I'm dark. It works so well for us. And then sometimes we switch. But we have predominant essences when we're together.
Yeah.
We pick a pole and we roll with it. It's not very often that we're both in the same energetic when we come together. Even though I might be in my soft feminine throughout the day and she might be in her soft feminine, when we come together, all of a sudden my pole activates.
Yeah, because what happens in that instance, yeah, you get activated. Let that pole activate. Mine's activating right now. Because what happens in that instance is, through the experience of those polarities, becomes there exists then a balance in your union.
Yeah.
And that's why it feels so yummy, because through the union and the embodiment of the polarities, you find that yummy, gooey balance between you. It's
totally.
Like, yeah.
That sounds like she's been the longest relationship of my life, you know, like going on 9 years. Clearly something's working there, right? Like, because we do the dance so naturally, right? It's not like I see her and I'm like, are you in your masculine or your feminine today? So I can adjust where I'm at to meet you where you're at.
Right.
It just happens so naturally. Like that is the ebb and flow of our essences and how we play together.
And that is, I think, the key to a healthy relationship dynamic, regardless of the label that you're putting on top of it. Mm-hmm. It's, can you play in the polarities that you want to play in complementarily? Yeah. What about you? Do you have any takeaways from this?
My takeaway would be to invite people to really sit with and be curious about what their natural essence is. You know, are you more Shiva Shakti, yin yang, masculine, feminine? How do you know?
Or in what areas of your life are you in which polarity?
Yeah, totally. And just to kind of start to develop that knowing, and then starting to see, okay, even how, like, examine how they show up in different relationships, like what you're saying, in a person's life. And I almost just like taking stock of that and getting clear about that. And also I obviously recommend like the wheel of consent to see like when it comes to that, which essentially it's like when you see the graph, it's like a circle and there's 4 quadrants, and they really talk about, it is polarities essentially.
Yes,
in the bedroom. And so like where within that circle do you reside? Because what's opposing you will likely be the thing that brings up the most attraction, and that doesn't mean that you can't have attraction to these other energies, and they do serve so well. They serve so well. And the more that I feel like we are educated in what our natural essence is, what activates us, which comes through deep self-exploration and also exploration in union, the better our relationships will naturally become, because that feeling of misalignment becomes such a loud signal that's like, I love this and it's just not quite right. And I'm noticing that this is why. And the power that comes from our ability to discern and be with ourselves, be with our experience, and really reflect on, okay, why am I feeling this relationship is off for some reason? Just not only does it create more intimacy, but it continues to create safety, and it just continues to support the personal journey, obviously. It's like, wow, I learned something about myself in that relationship where our polarities were off. And it showed me something, it exposed me to something new that I loved and I didn't realize, and also wasn't fulfilling. So we can pivot, right? We can pivot, and it's not really a loss. Actually, to me, all these things are still gains.
Yeah, 100%. They're illuminating.
Yeah. So for me, the takeaway is just like exploration. Like explore.
Conscious exploration.
Yeah, explore what that is. If you don't know, right, like we can ask our friends.
Yeah.
Hey, do you think I'm more masculine or feminine? Or like, what qualities of my feminine essence do you see most? What qualities of my masculine essence do you see most? Yeah. It's super interesting when you get reflections from other people, and you can take and receive that feedback. Yeah. Without, taking it too hard. Yes. But also, it's like beautiful insight. It's really, really beautiful insight to get that from people that you know and you love and you trust.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel complete with that.
I do too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for bringing your playfulness into this container.
Thank you for bringing your polarity into this container. Thank you for playing with my poles of arity. Polarity.
You're welcome, and that's only because I'm hoping that you'll play with my poles later.
I see what you did there. Yeah. I see what you did there.
Wow. Spankability.
Spankability, 100%.
Uh-huh.